Welcome to another Unreal Foos video. Happy New Year, and this is the first video of 2014, so I want to start the year by talking about the rules of Foosball, and in this case, I'll talk about the ITSF rules. I'll put a link in the description where you can download the ITSF rules, and just keep in mind that depending on the table that you play on or the country that you live in, there may be different rules, not necessarily the ITSF rules. Hopefully they'll be similar. At the end of the video, if there's any questions, shoot me an email or post a comment, and I'll try to answer that. I'm going to talk about somewhat briefly through each one of the sections in the rule book and explain some of the things that I find interesting or that somebody just getting into foosball would need to know. So let's get started. Rule number 1, the code of ethics. This just means, don't do anything unethical or unsportsmanlike. It is up to the discretion of the tournament director whether the actions that you've done that violated the code of ethics, whether that will deem forfeiture of a game or maybe expulsion from the tournament room. So, just be respectful, don't swear, and, respect the game and your opponent, and everything should be okay. Okay, rule number 2 talks about the match length. In most cases, it will be 3 out of 5 games, each game being played to 5 points. The 5th game has to be won by 2 points with a cap of 8 in most cases. But it's really up to the tournament director. Some events will be a 2 out of 3, or it could be a single game to 7, which is known as a race to 7. But if you're making your own tournament and you have time constraints, you can, as a tournament director, you can just set the ground rules, whether it's a single game to 5 points, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 5, whatever you want. Also, in most tournaments, you'll play a double elimination, so there'll be a winner side and a loser side. In other cases, it might just be a single elimination event. Again, the tournament director just lays all those ground rules, and so it is left up to the discretion of the tournament director. Rule number 3: how do you start the match? Once you and your opponent get to the table, you flip a coin. Whoever wins the toss has the option of getting the ball, which means they'll get to serve first, so you'll have the first offensive possession, or you can pick the side. And so, in most cases, people will take the first serve because, you want to have the first offensive opportunity in order to go up in the score. But in other cases, if you check the sides and there is a side that you don't particularly like, you may just want to take the side if you feel that it's more important than getting the ball. If you lose the toss, then whatever your opponent chooses, then you get the other option. So if they take the ball, then you have the choice of sides. If they take the side, then you get the ball. Rule number 4 is the serve and the ready protocol. So the serve says that you always have to, when you're starting a point, it has to start from the middle, and it has to and it has to be started by this middle guy. And before you start the movement, you have to go through this ready protocol, which means you ask your opponent if they're ready, at which point they have 3 seconds to reply and say yes or ready, and then you have 3 seconds to basically, after they say yes or ready, to begin to begin play. And to start the movement or to start the serve, you basically have to start with this middle guy, and it has to touch 2 guys. It doesn't matter which 2 guys. This will always be the first one. And as soon as it hits the second guy, whether it's this guy or this guy, doesn't matter, or this, however you want to do it, like that, you have to wait 1 second after it hits the second guy before advancing. So doing something like this, ready, is illegal because you didn't wait 1 second. Doing something like this, ready, is illegal because you didn't touch 2 guys. If you start and you say ready, and you make a mistake, let's say you turn the ball over to your opponent's 3-bar, then your opponent has the option of playing the ball from where it stopped, or starting play again from their 5-bar. Rule number 5 is subsequent serves. That just means that the last person that got scored on gets to serve the ball. The one thing to understand here is that let's say I have the ball and I'm serving, and let's say I make a mistake and I say ready, and then I do a pass, an illegal pass, and the opponent says that was illegal, and say, oh yeah, that's right, I didn't wait a second. They get it back, they get the serve on their 5. Let's say at some point, they're passing, and I block it, and eventually, we basically the ball ends up dying in the middle, right there. So the opponent doesn't get the ball. It's actually I will be the one that gets the ball because I was the last one that got scored on. So even though the ball turned over to them, during this point, if the ball dies, it actually goes back to me and it doesn't go back to them. So that's one. Number 6, ball in play just means once the ball, once you start your serve, once it's moving, once it's in play, it only stops being in play if it dies. If it's a dead ball, nobody can reach it, goes off the table, somebody calls a timeout. So that's it. Rule number 7 is the ball off the table, and this one's usually not the clearest because it is sort of suggestive. What the rule says is that the power that a player puts on a pass or shot that causes the ball to go off the table, then the ball shall be put back at the opponent's goalie area. That means that if I'm like, for example, passing, and it was me that put the power, I did essentially a hard pass, it gets blocked, and that causes the ball to go off the table. It's not the opponent that gets penalized. It's essentially me. They're saying I put the power that basically cost the ball to go off the table, or if my goalie does a shot, it hits somebody, one of the opponent's 5R, and that causes the ball to go off the table, then the ball gets put back by the opposing goalie. The same thing if I do a shot here, if I do, for example, a rollover that gets blocked and goes off the table, then the ball goes back to the opposing goalie. This rule also says that you can't perform shots that lob the ball over, so that's like, the aerial shot, so that one bans, so this rule bans that shot. However, if you do shoot and it hits a guy and the ball jumps over some of the rods and lands here in the goal, that's still legal. It's only the explicit, lobbing of the ball over other rods that's prohibited. Okay, rule number 8 talks about a dead ball. So what is a dead ball? A dead ball is when the ball stops moving completely and it's out of the reach of any of the player figures. Okay, so again, on this table, the ball can go dead between the two 5Rs. It can go dead between, you can basically go dead between any rods right here between the 5R and the opponent's 3 rod, or you can even go dead right here between the goalies, between the goalie rods. So the different rules, if it dies right here, it goes back to the to the original team that served the ball. If it dies in between a 5R and this 3-bar, it goes to the nearest goalie. And if it dies, between two goalie rods, right here, time will reset. You basically get a new timer, and the ball stays here. It stays in possession of the goalie. Rule number 9 is the timeout. You get 2 timeouts per game. Only the team that has possession of the ball can call a timeout. Once you call a timeout, you can't call a second timeout on the same rod until it leaves the rod. So if I have the ball here and I call the timeout and then I come back and I'm still here and I've never attempted to get the ball out of the possession of this rod, and I call a second timeout back to back, that's illegal, and that results in basically a loss of possession and a warning, and subsequent violations result in technical shots. Timeouts are 30 seconds, and even if your opponent, if let's say I take a timeout just because I was running out of time here and I want to stop, I call a timeout, and I only want to take 10 out of those 30 seconds. My opponent has the the choice of waiting the whole 30 seconds, even if I was the one that took the timeout. I'm skipping rules 10 and 11. Rule 12 is the point scored, and any point that's scored legally counts. It doesn't matter whether it's on the 5 bar, out of the goal, or from the 3. Sometimes we get questions asking whether points scored from the 5 bar are good, and they certainly are. As long as it was a legal shot, everything counts. Rule 13 is table sides, and this means that after a game, either player or team has the opportunity to switch sides if they choose to do that. And once, if both teams agree not to switch sides, then they can't switch sides anymore for the remainder of the match. So if you didn't switch sides after the first game, you stay on the same side for the duration of the match. But if you switch sides during after the first game, then you have to switch sides every game after that. Rule 14 is change of positions, and this only applies to doubles. You basically can only switch positions during a timeout, or obviously after the game ends. But you can't switch sides while the ball is in play, and if the ball goes off the table, you can't switch sides. If you want to switch sides, then you have to call a timeout. Rule number 15 is spinning the rods, and spinning is illegal. There are some shots that you can spin, but it's got to be a control spin, which means that you can't spin more than 360 degrees before hitting the ball, and then after it hits the ball, the guy cannot spin more than 360 degrees. So there is some spinning allowed, but it has to be very controlled. And just doing what most beginners do, spinning the rods, that's not allowed, so don't do it. Rule number 16 is jarring, and jars are accumulated on per match, not per game. And the first and second jars, basically the opponent has the choice of serving the ball, continuing play from where the ball landed, or continuing play from where the infraction happened. Okay, and a jar is basically being too rough, hitting the ball, sliding, or lifting the table, and if that causes the opponent to basically lose control of the ball because of the jar, then they have the option, as I said, of getting the ball back. Sometimes if you don't have a ref, it's really it's sort of like one of those code of ethics, like where they're since it is a sort of a judgment call, then you have to discuss it with the opponent, and if you don't come up with an agreement, then you just play the ball where it ended, or you can just go get a ref. Sometimes what will happen is that players will just agree to give the ball at a different rod. So for example, if I was doing a pass and I felt like somebody jarred me, and I talked to them, they're like, no, I don't think I jarred you. But the opponent might say, oh, I'll just give it back to you on your 5 bar. So it's basically like, okay, let's just do it over. And so if you're okay with that, you can take that approach. If you don't agree with that, if it was a critical situation and you felt you got jarred, then you might just want to go get an official. But most of the time, since it is a judgment thing, then you're not going to get the ball back if an official wasn't present, because this guy says, this guy might say, no, I didn't jar you. So the only thing that can happen is once you go get an official, then the next time it happens, it is up to the official to call the jar. And the last thing about jarring is if you accidentally touch the opponent's rods while the ball's in play, it's basically, it'll be called as if it was a jar, right? So, okay. Rule number 17 is the reset, and the difference between a reset is it's really any movement that basically causes the ball to kind of move, and it might compromise the ability for somebody to shoot or pass. You can see resets like, if somebody sets up for a pull shot, for example, or, maybe you can see it better on this side. If I set up for a pull shot and I'm a goalie, and then I do things like, like this, and I cause the ball to move, then that's basically a reset. I'm not causing the ball to move, I'm not causing this guy to lose the ball, but, I am sort of, by being by doing that, I am causing the ball to move and wiggle, so that's basically considered a reset. Resets are charged per game, not per match. So after every game, you get a new set of resets. So, but during the same game, you get one freebie reset, for example. So the first time that you do a reset, the official will call reset. Then after that, you only have 2 resets per point. So while the same point is going on, if there's that the first reset already got called, then the next reset will be a warning or reset warning, and then after that it's a technical foul. Once the technical foul is taken, then you basically go back to that warning state. So then the next reset that happens, and when the technical foul is taken, it doesn't matter whether you make it or not. If you miss it or if you score it, the next time that your opponent resets or you reset, then it's gonna go. It's gonna go to the warning and then a technical foul. And again, resets are charged per team, not per player. But again, they are charged separately. So if your opponent gets called for the first reset, and then after that it's warning and technical foul, and you still have your original reset, and then if you commit that first reset during that game, then any other resets after that will be warning and technical shots. Okay, I'm skipping rules 18 and 19 and moving to rule 20, which is the distraction. And distraction, it's things like talking while the ball is in play, or maybe moving your guys while your opponent has possession of the ball and they're about to shoot, or maybe doing things like, if I'm setting up for a shot, I can't do things like and then shoot. I can't distract my opponent like that. The goalie, or I can't do things like moving the bar, like doing like a movement here and then behind the ball and then shooting. So those things are usually distractions. Also things like it typically happens where you'll do a pass. When you do the pass, maybe your opponent says, "Oh, good pass," and at that moment, you end up losing the ball. Whether it was legitimate that the fact that he talked made you lose the ball or not, it's irrelevant. The fact that he talked while you were executing your pass, or maybe trying to catch it and gain possession of it, that's basically a distraction. So what happens with a distraction, if somebody scores a point, and they basically committed a distraction, then the point doesn't count. However, if you score a point while your opponent maybe attempted to distract you, or they did something to try to distract you, the point will still count. And sometimes if you have an official present, if the opponent or you are guilty of a distraction, then depending on for the first time, the official will give you a warning, and then after that you're basically grounds for distractions, or grounds for technical foul. So just try to not move your rods while you're shooting, or don't talk in between, like moving your hands like off the handle, doing things like, and then going and shooting. Those things are deemed distractions, talking and things like that. So, and then those are usually pretty common. Rule 21 is practice. You can practice during timeouts. You can practice between games. So, if you call a timeout, you can take a couple of practice shots, and then after the timeout be ready to shoot. No, once you take a timeout, once the game starts, you cannot do anything to practice in between. Once the game ends, then you do have you could get while you're waiting for the next game to begin, you can take a few shots and try a few passes and do a little bit of practice if you want. Okay, rule 23 is passing. So what are the key things about passing is you have on the 5-bar you have up to 2 walls here, so you can once you start your passing series, you can hit the ball 1, 2, and you can't hit the ball a third time like this and then pass. That's illegal. You only get 2 walls. On any other rod, the wall limit does not apply. So you've seen that over here. You know, you can hit the ball. You can hit the wall as many times as you like. The same thing with if you have the ball over here. You can hit the ball as many times as you like it. So the 2 wall limit only exists on the 5-bar during passing. Also, a stopped or pinned ball. So if I'm here, I can never pass like that directly to my rod. I can do passes off the wall like that. That's legal, but I can't pass the ball off of a stopped or a pinned ball like this. Like I couldn't just pin the ball like this and then try to advance from that pin position. So maybe like if it was more of a, like if I'm here and then I try to advance it with the same ball. In that situation, if I have it pinned or stopped and I advance it, even if it hits the 5-man, I cannot catch it. It's an illegal pass if I catch it. That's different than if I have it pinned or stopped on the 2-bar and I hit the ball and it deflects off the opponent's 3-bar. At that point, as soon as it hits this guy, and it's a live ball and anybody can catch it, and obviously it's also legal. You know, that's one key technique of passing over here from the goalie to your 3. You can do stopped or pinned passes from here. It's only passing from here to here. You cannot pass it from a pin or stop position. But again, if it hits this guy, if it deflects off of this guy, then it's a live ball and this guy can catch it. The other thing with an adjustment is when you're passing, and let's say you try to pass here and you sort of misexecuted the pass and the ball's moving, and while the ball's moving in the direction of the original pass, if you change the direction of it, that's called an adjustment, and that's not legal. So if I was trying to do that and then I changed the direction of it. So if I already did a pass here and I ended up hitting it basically twice, that's essentially illegal. A pin ball. So the other thing is that if I have a stop pass, let's say I try to do an off the wall pass like that, but I ended up hitting my guy a little bit, and it deflects off my 3-bar and just goes to the goalie. That's not really considered an illegal pass, so it wouldn't go back here. It would just stay at the goalie, and that's just only because the 3-bar, didn't have any controlled adjustment or didn't try to catch it or anything. If I'm just hitting here and it just deflects off of it, it's not considered an illegal pass. So the play would continue from this position, or even if it had hit off my guy, bounced off the 2-bar and then gone back here, that would have been a legal basically possession here. Rule 24 is the time of possession, and on the 5-bar you get 10 seconds. You get 10 seconds to try to advance the ball. That time limit resets every time that that you attempt to pass. If it gets blocked, then you gain possession. You essentially have a new clock, a new 10 seconds. If you call a timeout, when you come back in, it's another 10 seconds. And obviously when a ref calls reset on your opponent, you get a new clock. So you get a new set of walls, and you get you get a new clock as well. On possession, when you have a possession on your goalie or your 3-bar, you get 15 seconds, and that's it. The last rule I'm going to talk about is 27, which is the technical shot. If a technical shot is awarded, then it just goes back to it gets placed on the 3-bar, and you have to start the technical shot just like you're starting the possession from this rod. That means I have to go through my ready protocol and put the ball back in play. Once I take the shot, if I miss the technical shot, the ball goes back to the place where the ball originally was when the technical foul got called. So if it was because of resets on the 5R, or maybe a reset over here, or maybe a jar or whatever, then the ball goes back there. If the point gets scored, then the opponents get to serve the ball. So other than that, I think that's all of the things. Feel free to look through the rule book. I skipped out some things that I don't think they're good to know, obviously, but they're not as important for me to point out here. If you have any questions on what I explained, send me an email, or any other questions, post a comment on the video, and I'll try to do a follow-up video if I ended up missing something big, or if I made some mistakes. So thanks, and again, let me know if you have any questions.